Good morning, Trump's family. Welcome back to my channel. Hopefully, I'm gonna provide a situation update. Thank you for joining me. God bless each and every one of you. Let's just jump right in, folks. There's plenty of things to talk about. I will give you a perspective of that perhaps the Ukraine art, that the Russian invasion is not exactly what we're being told. Perhaps there are some moves being made by Putin that aren't as brutal as is being reported. Now, folks, let me just be very clear. I'm not saying that I support Putin invading Ukraine, that there's not brutality going on. I just wanted to take an objective look at certain things that he could have done, that he isn't doing, and there may be a reason why. So just go check it out. The links are down below to that. But please do it after checking this one out. This will have the most recent news. And that's just an analysis, whether you watch it later today, or right now, of overall things that are going up to this point with the Russian invasion in Ukraine. And also historically, putting it in perspective as far as the United States and NATO is concerned. Now, while all this is going on, I had mentioned in our midnight show that there's something very interesting going on with Joe Biden. Now he went to Delaware. Immediately on Friday, he went to Delaware, in the middle of an international crisis. Now, why is this dangerous? Well, 1. When he goes to Delaware, we have no logs of who he's meeting with, what's going on. And of course, we know that that's when his handlers and the people pulling the puppet strings can meet with him and tell him what to do, whether it's via phone or meeting with him personally. I don't know exactly how Obama and the Soros crowd are communicating with him. I don't know how exactly he's getting the CCP strings pulled. But it definitely happens in Delaware under the cover of darkness where no one can see or hear what's going on. But there's more to it. Even though all this is going on, by the rules, if he's following the rules, Biden isn't receiving security updates while in Delaware in the middle of Russia arming there or putting their military deterrent forces on notice. Because there is no SCIF in Delaware for him to do this. This is absolutely crazy. Joe Biden must have taken the weekend off. He has not. He is not looking into insensitive information related to Russia's invasion of Ukraine because there is no evidence that Biden has a protective SCIF built at his Delaware residence. So in 2016, we all became aware of what SCIFs are. Their sensitive compartmented information facility. It's a conference room, where it's debugged, they make sure that no one can spy in and listen in an eavesdropper video drop on discussions and review of documents. It can be any room or building outfitted to prevent intrusion or surveillance efforts. They use by government and military officials when discussing confidential information, often related to national security. The most known SCIF is the Situation Room in the White House. The directive from the Officer of the Director of National Intelligence (ODNI) knows that all sensitive compartmented information must be processed, stored, used or discussed in an accredited SCIF, which must follow a set of uniform security requirements, including physical and technical impediments, plus visitor control. None of those exists in Delaware. That hasn't been documented. We know that Trump had these and in the news of it happening. But there is no indication that Joe Biden is doing this. Back in November of 2020. CNN had reported that Joe Biden could build a SCIF in Delaware, but he has not done this. And there has not been any data reporting that he has. Now only his has really been quiet. He is currently very quiet now that we want to hear from him. But his virus team has been quiet by quite silent, as tomorrow is going to be the State of the Union address, the disunion address, the division and everything by design. It is Monday. And we're in a weird time in history. Nothing from the virus team on Joe. As Joe Biden gets ready for the State of the Union address. Tom Cotton had some really good ideas on how to cut Russia off for real. He said there's a lot more we can do. You've seen Ukrainian army elements overmatched with armor and air power repulsing these attacks on Kiev, and Kharkiv and other cities. We've seen moms with their kids making Molotov cocktails, grandmas and grandpas who reporting to get AKA so they can fight as well. But we can do more than prayers and hashtags and lighting up buildings. It's time for the president and some of our European partners to quit pussyfooting around. The financial sanctions announced last night are riddled with loopholes. This is Tom Cotton on Sunday with George Stephanopoulos on The Sunday Show on This Week. This is what he's saying. I know that they say they've sanctioned 80% of the banks of Russia while Vladimir Putin controls 100% of the banks in Russia. He can use the other 20% to continue to finance his war machine. It's time to remove all Russian financial institutions from the international payment system. It's time to impose sanctions on his oil and gas exports, which he uses as his primary means of financial support. We need to, well, that's what I want to cover. The time is now, there's not a mental lose. We need to stand with them. Okay, the loopholes are by design. I want you to listen to what American billionaire John Catsimatidis told Fox Business right at the start of the weekend. The billionaire owner and CEO of a New York City supermarket chain, who is also in the oil industry, reacted to Biden's continuing to buy oil from Russian President Vladimir Putin. We are directly funding this attack on Ukraine. Good, bad, or indifferent. We are still buying crude oil from Putin. We are wiring him money every day for the United States and payment for crude oil going into Boston Harbor. You know we are. So these sanctions are happening, but we're still buying Russia. Well, because he called the Keystone. I'm talking about Biden, Keystone XL pipeline, and not allowing and reviewing. It's taken a long time to get us new drilling on federal lands. It's all a sham, saying that we're incensed on the Russian attack, saying that there's going to be sanctions, but carving out the ability for us to still be dependent on oil from them, which we don't have to be, we can do it here. Are you missing Trump yet? Well, remember, Attorney General William Barr, I'll admit, he fooled me for a cool minute. Jeff Sessions was a fraidy cat. At least one after the cow did litters. And the pedals and all those guys as much as he could. But he didn't have the killer instinct. Bill Barr came in, yes, he was a deep state guy, but he was saying the right things. And in the beginning, he was taking certain actions. He did say, yes, Trump was being spied on. And yes, things were done by the FBI that shouldn't have been done. He was saying the right things. And we were cautiously optimistic, some of us, and that optimism never materialized. Now, I know in hindsight, a lot of people say, William Barr was deep state or whatever. But the people that I have confidence had confidence in him. President Trump had confidence in him. Many of the people in, let's see, how many times do we have on record people like Jim Jordan and other people in D.C. that are insiders, how vehement was the opposition by the left against Bill Barr. We have reason to be hopefully optimistic. But now we know with him hiding things to help Biden in 2020, the whole Hunter situation, it's getting worse. Now as far as what he really was about is not just forwarding President Trump in 2020. He is trying to work toward him in 2024. Now that at CPAC, President Trump has made it very clear that he is running again in 2024. Former Attorney General says that Donald Trump is to blame for the Capitol Hill events on 1/6, and he is calling for a new 2024 nominee to the Republican Party. The Wall Street Journal profiled William Barr and his upcoming 600-page book. And Barr argues that President Trump has shown he has neither the temperament nor persuasive powers to provide the kind of positive leadership that is needed. Yeah, when your enemies hate you, including enemies like Bill Barr, there's nothing you can do to persuade them. Hate is hate. It is irrational, and often doesn't even work in its own best interest. How many people in history do you know personally in society, every single day, cut off their nose to spite their face, either literally or figuratively? Barr even goes as far as to say that Trump could have won in 2020. Had he just exercised a modicum of self-restraint, moderating even a little of his pettiness. Of course, Bill Barr, pushing the narrative of President Trump not being the true victor of that fateful November, the year before last. He goes on to say, quote, "The election was not stolen. Trump lost it." The name of his new book, in which he says this, is titled One Damn Thing After Another. Now, as far as undermining President Trump for 2024, Barr advises that Republicans look to an impressive array of younger candidates for the 2024 election to avoid the pitfalls of the former president's erratic personal behavior. Now, let's not talk Trump for a second. I am totally for looking for younger young blood. On the conservative side. This is a must. The straw poll done at CPACO, I don't have the number in front of me. I want to say someone can correct me down below, but I know I'm not off. It was like 59 to 28, 59% Trump, 28%, 59% for Trump, 28% for DeSantis. Youngblood not all going in for Trump, but Trump more than doubling? I don't think it was 5,228. I do believe that it was 5,928. I don't know who makes up the other. What would that be, 3%? Probably people like Christie. Noam. Because a lot of people want to have a female Republican in the race for 2024. Barr says that he had meetings in the Oval Office with President Trump after he declared publicly that there was that widespread evidence of fraud did not exist. So he met with President Trump in the Oval Office. According to Barr. I'm not gonna quote Barr says I don't believe all of what he's saying. But I believe he may have that President Trump may have said this. This is killing me. This is pulling the rug right out from under me. That's how anyone would feel of an injustice when people that are supposed to be supporting the truth, justice and the American way, are siding with and working for the other side. Let me remind you that on day one, Joseph Robinette Biden was at 17 executive orders. Executive orders have to be looked at by the Attorney General. In the waning days and the last days of the first term of President Trump, Bill Barr was working as the I don't know, de facto, but essentially the interim Attorney General for Biden, making sure that I's and T's were crossed, or at least looking over and advising on those executive orders. And he was not. There were certain things that Trump asked the AG to do on the last few days. And he and Barr just wasn't talking to Trump, was ignoring him. He was already working on behalf of Joe Biden. And Barr says that Trump shouted at him. He stopped for a moment and then said, "You must hate Trump. You would only do this if you hate Trump." And I think President Trump nailed it. Supposedly, Trump fired him on the spot. Barr went and ignored him and didn't resign until later. Now, regarding the events of the 6th day of January, Barr says that Trump lost himself out the election and was pushing all of these conspiracy theories, essentially, to an intense degree that led to the riot. That's right. So not only did Barr help Joe Biden in 2020, help cover for Hunter came out before looking at any evidence and came to predetermined conclusions about what did or did not happen. And 2020 was working for the transition team of Joseph Biden. But now is blaming Trump, and saying that there's no shenanigans that would have brought a different result of 2020 and is going against President Trump running in 2024. He is also joining the chorus of other rhinos, and leftists and Marxist liars, blaming President Trump for the false flag attempt of the deep state on the Capitol that day. Once again, Barr is saying that President Trump saying what he said to such an intense degree is what led to the Capitol Hill events. The observed links to which he took his stolen claims led to the writing on Capitol Hill. He writes, I have the numbers here. CPAC. Straw CPAC. Straw poll 59% Trump. Ron DeSantis 28%. By the way, Trump was at 55% last year at CPAC. So he's gaining even more momentum among conservative and Republicans. There you go. I got other news for you that we will cover later today in the next episode, including one of the most ridiculous claims ever made. And there's been a lot of ridiculous claims. This one's ridiculous. And it has to do with the truck convoy. Yeah, we haven't forgotten about you, Canada. We do have a huge crisis on the other side of the Atlantic, but we haven't forgotten your suffering in the tyranny under Trudeau that you've had to deal with in the recent weeks, as the world looks at tyranny across the pond. Ladies and gentlemen, give me your thoughts below and hit subscribe right now. And I will see you guys next time. Thank you for watching.